See that there's a poppy, and actually when we were working on the program, Dr. Booten, because this was his idea, he had 2 poppies there, and I suggested we put the forget-me-not, because the forget-me-not is the Newfoundland symbol of remembering the war dead, and I like the combination for 2 reasons. One, the poppy is black and red, the things of war that we don't like, and the poppy is the blue, is the United Nations symbol for peace, and that's what we're about here tonight. We're looking for peace. This room we're actually in, you can't see his picture, but behind the Canadian flag over there, this room is dedicated to Mr. Jack Cater, a World War I vet. So when he comes back here after World War I in 1925, Memorial College opens. 4 years after that college opens, 1929, a baby girl is born in Germany. She grew up to live through World War II, fled East Germany, ended up in the USA, and in 1968, as a mother of 3 children, she moved to St. John's where her husband, who was to be a professor at Memorial University. And she's almost immediately enthralled with the Beothics. She returns to university, researches, and writes a book on the history of the Beothic that is now considered the definitive book on the Beothics. And of course, I'm talking about Ingeborg Marshall, who received an honorary degree from this same university in 2007. So you see the full circle, hey? Fighting against Germans. A German comes here and gives us a piece of history that will last forever. So thank God that she immigrated to here, and perhaps another immigrant or a child of an immigrant will research and write the definitive book on the Mi'kmaq people of Newfoundland. All of you tonight are special guests, but I particularly want to point to our Chief Brendan Mitchell for coming over from Corner Brook. I'd like to point out our Vice Chief, Joe Bazan. Joe, would you stand up there, please, so people know who you are? I'd like to also point out Councillor Frank Skeard is here. Frank Glenwood Ward. I also like to point out tonight that Nellie Power, as part of the drumming group, is here. Nellie, a former chief of Speltech, and with the Federation of Newfoundland Indians. Nellie's sidekick, her cousin and my cousin, Bernie Hanlon, much respected in the Mi'kmaq community, died 3 years ago. But with her tonight, her son John is here somewhere, I think. John, you're here? No. And her sister Margaret, and her brother Jerry, and nieces and nephews. And I'd like to thank the drumming group. I'd like to thank Mr. Gerald Beaton. Gerald's probably the oldest member of the Mi'kmaq group right here. And Gerald's family is tied into Wigwam Point, and we're expecting the development there in the next couple of years. I'd like to thank the drumming group. I thank my sister Cavell for singing Old Canada in Mi'kmaq. And the last of it is Dr. Booten actually came to me, I think he said is around October the 10th, with the idea for tonight's event. So in less than a month, we had built this bridge building event. I called it a Booten Barker Bridge Consultants. No doubt, it was the quickest bridge ever built along the exploits. I'm not saying about any other place. In our meetings, Dr. Booten had a hard time calling me Andy, and I called him Mohammed. He had some concerns about tonight's event, that someone might be offended or take something the wrong way. Well, tonight is not about burning a bridge, it's about building a bridge. Learning about the AHMADIYYA, learning about the Qalipu, enjoying all of our company here, and leaving here on a friendship bridge. Thus, this night is one of best intentions, there's no harm intended, and is summed up in the AHMADIYYA motto: love all, hatred for none. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Let's play a very short game. Who's hungry? Put up your hand. I have some great news for you if you are, because the blessings are next, and you know what follows the blessings. We all eat. So once again, I'd like to call on the Imam Nadim Khan, please, to bring our blessings, and then we'll have our supper.
So it's the Islamic tradition that when we start our meal, we start with a prayer that is Bismillahi wa ala barakatillahi, meaning that in the name of God and all the blessings upon Him. And I'm sure that there is in other religions there is also some prayers like this before you start the meal. So with this prayer, we are going to start our meal today. Thank you. Amen.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, let's go now to the formal part of our program. I introduced him earlier. He spoke to us as well, but I forgot to mention his title. But before I do that, I mentioned Susan earlier, who's been involved for years around Central and the district as MHA minister. But I'd also like to say a special hello to also another former politician who's been very active in Central on many occasions. He recently retired. I'd like to say hello to former Mayor of Badger, Mike Patey. Nice to see you, sir. Okay. That being said, let's go back to the program. I'm now called upon the Ward Councillor, Exploits for the Qalipu First Nation, Mr. Andy Barker.
It's my privilege to introduce to you Chief Brendan Mitchell. I've only known Brendan 5 years since we've been on the council together, but I think we almost have like a spiritual connection, because his great-grandfather, Matty Mitchell, and my grandfather, Louis John, were guides in this area in the early 1900s, and grandfather traveled a lot towards the west coast, so I would think it was almost impossible that they didn't meet at some time or another. And some of you may not know, but Brendan's great-grandfather really helped to save this town a long time ago. In the 1930s, when the mill was just breaking even or not making much profit, the mine, the ore body that his grandfather had discovered in around 1908 or so, became a full-fledged mine, and the A&D company owned 50% of the profits of that mine, so that really kept the A&D company here when the paper industry wasn't that great. So here he is now, the great-grandson, Matty Mitchell, the chief of our band, Qalipu, here with us tonight. And it's a bit ironic that the grandson of Louis John actually submitted that name, Qalipu, that was chosen, and that's Bill Dugan, who lives in Cornerville. So a long-time connection keeps going. Brendan himself was born in Cornerbrook, where he lives with his wife, Sheila Lasaga. A family name that I love to say, Lasaga. Brendan himself is a Bachelor of Science degree. He has an MBA. He spent 30 years with the paper industry, so he's a kinfolk to us. Lunch baskets are in Cornerbrook. They actually came from here, Brendan. Brendan is a champion golfer. He told me one time he even thought about turning pro. I've never played golf in my life. Brendan is also a drummer, and just not in with the drumming group here tonight. He's also a recognized fly fisherman and casting skills. And when I was looking at the Mi'kmaq online website about language guide, I looked up, a chief in the Mi'kmaq is called a Sagama. And here's the definition of a Sagama. a gentleman, a man of high rank, a chief, but my favorite, big shot. On the website, you will see that Brendan says he plans to work with the council and the staff at Qalipu, doing the right things for Qalipu Nation, putting our people and communities first, doing so with respect, honesty, integrity, and true dedication. In the 5 years that I've known Brendan Mitchell, that is the way he has operated. And with the business of our council, as open, as transparent as possible. In my feeling, he is the best person at the helm at this time for our band. Thus, I give you Sagama Brendan Mitchell.
This past summer has been an interesting time as people in Canada celebrated Canada 150. The truth is, Indigenous people in Canada have been around a lot longer than 150 years. Many Indigenous leaders were uncertain as they should be celebrating Canada 150. For me personally, 150 years is okay to celebrate. There's nothing wrong with that. Both as Indigenous people and as Canadians, we have to be able to celebrate what we have in this country, where we've come from, and the contribution that Indigenous people have made to the development of Canada. I was so pleased to see that we have a new name on a day called Aboriginal Day, now called National Indigenous Peoples Day. We also have a Diversity Day right now in Canada. A good time to recognize the different people that are in this country that make up Canada. Language, religion, where they came from, color, all those wonderful things. So when I think about Canada 150 and from a positive aspect, I say to myself and I say to others, let's not forget the last 150 years and what happened to Indigenous people or anybody in the country. Let's work together in unity while we're alive today in this generation to pave the way for a better and more prosperous next 150 years. Thank you. So in concluding, I just want to say thank you for our members that are here tonight and Mi'kmaq people that are supporting this event. Thank you so much for the invitation, Dr. and Mr. Malik, for the invitation to be here with you and share this evening with you. I'm really looking forward to hearing from Mr. Malik and his role and responsibility across this country. He's been living in Canada for 30 years. He's a great diplomat for his people, and he's very interested in our relationship with his people because he sees our stories kind of working parallel together. So on that note, I will sit down now and say to all of you, Walayo, thank you very much. Have a great evening.
I first met Mr. Malik, I think it was 2008, I believe. And I believe it was in this building, if I'm not mistaken. So here he is, a national figure of national prominence. I thought, well, this is his one shot of coming to a small town in Newfoundland and Labrador, but he's back. Look at that, not bad. Thank you, sir, for coming back and to provide a proper introduction. I now call upon my friend, your friend, our friend, Dr. Mohammed Boudin.
Before giving you an introduction for Mr. Malik, I would like to call upon Wendy and Sylvia to come and make a presentation to Mr. Malik. And Wendy will tell you what it's all about.
Well, tonight I'm here to thank the AHMADIYYA Muslim community of Canada and Mr. Malik very much for their support of the South and Central Health Foundation through their participation in our monthly donor program for almost over 20 years. This program helps our charity continue its mission, which is to enhance the health and well-being of our communities. Every year we see many lives change for the better, all because of the generosity of supporters like you. Well, in recognition of this support, tonight I'm going to present you with a certificate of congratulations upon reaching the Distinguished Ambassador level in our charity's donor program. And Cynthia has our recognition certificate.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Malik is the National President of the AHMADIYYA Muslim Community of Canada. He lives in Peace Village, which is near the Baitul Islam Mosque in Maple. in the city of Vaughan, Ontario, or quickly said, it's just by the Canada Wonderland. Mr. Malik has served the community in Canada in various capacities over many decades. He was elected as its national president over a decade ago. Before moving to Canada in 1987, he served as an engineer in South Asia and East Africa. Mr. Lal Khan Malik is a strong advocate of social services and was recently presented the Lifetime of Service Recognition Award by the Ontario Non-Profit Housing Association for his 20 years of service with the Non-Profit Housing Association. As a student of the Holy Quran, he is ever willing to present the peaceful message of Islam and dispel the myth about its teachings. He is a passionate proponent of interfaith dialogue and has spoken at many conferences throughout Canada. He strongly promotes the Islamic teaching that love of the country is part of his faith, and he urges Canadians to publicly show their love for Canada. As national president of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, Mr. Malik extensively travels across Canada. His love of Canada extends not just to the Ahmadiyya Muslim community he serves, but also to all citizens of our glorious land. He believes in and practices the motto of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, love for all, hatred for none. His last visit to Grand Falls-Windsor was in November of 2008, and I'm very pleased that he's here again with us today. Mr. Malik, please.
Thank you very much for this evening with this warm-hearted reception that you have afforded. I have been introduced. I'm a national servant of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in Canada, and it is in this role that I have traveled to Newfoundland 3 times and to Grand Falls-Windsor 2nd time this year.